Hello, welcome back to another episode of Coaches Connected. Today we're going to talk about a topic that is pretty much of vital importance to all coaches within the UK and Europe, specifically the UK, because it's one of the things that we've had to deal with as long as I've been coaching, and that is working with time constraints. So today we're going to talk about things that we do to make our life easier and things that we can pass on, hopefully, if you don't do it already, so that you can learn and take on board and do in the future. As you know, in this country, our practices are very, very limited, and our time with our guys are very, very limited. So today we're going to talk a little bit about making the most of the time that you have. So we're going to go through this PowerPoint, and I'll talk about some stuff that I do and that we've done in the past to maximise our output on any given week. Okay, you can see on the header there, it's time to grind, and these are just the five points that I've made out that I think are probably vital that to coaches in the UK and what we do. And the first is obviously our practice time. Now, let's just say that I know some guys' seasons start in December, some guys' seasons start in November. It all depends on the level you're at. But most teams that I've been at, we start in the first week of January. Sometimes a little bit later than that, depending on when your first game is. If you're a higher level, Prem games don't start till the end of March and stuff. So you get more time. So we the last few years we've always started at the beginning of January, and that usually gives us a block of, we'll say, 12 to 14 weeks, depending on however you want to do it, how many rest weeks you want to give the guys. You get about 12 to 14 weeks before you end up having to actually play a game. Uh, for us, I'm not sure about everybody else, but from my own experiences, the UK sessions that I've been involved with, they usually last about 2 hours, sometimes 2.5 hours. There have been 3 hours practice, but I've never been involved in them per se. It's always been 2 hours or 2.5 hours for the most part. Now, in those 2.5 hours, we only practice once a week during those winter periods. So each Sunday we will practice for 2 hours, one time per week, and that's not a lot of time when you're putting together an offense and trying to install it in the time that you're given. And out of those 2 hours or 2.5 hours, offenses in general they'll get 1 hour to do what they need to do to get it to work. You know what I mean? So we only really get an hour per week on field at the start of the year. It may ramp up once it gets light nights in the beginning of March and when the field's less frozen and you can do more stuff. But for the first 8 to 10 weeks, it's usually one session, 2 hours. So you got, and those early sessions are when you're installing the most stuff. So you've got to try and make the most of it and get the best out of it as much as you possibly can. So I've always maintained the theory of how can we take advantage of that time that we have, that hour that we have. How can we get the fullest out of it? Obviously, we can see if we're doing run scaling and pass scaling after that's team activity. We're already into our install by then. It's already that week's install already done, and it's hopefully see the fruits of our labour. So how can we take advantage of the time that we have? And the next question I always ask myself is, can we steal time? How can we steal time? And finally, what can we do to make our life a little bit easier? And these are the 5 points that I always feel that I always come back to. This is what we've got to deal with. How do we attack it, and what can we do? Okay, first thing that we always talk about, and most teams talk about, is install. It's the big holy grail for offenses. We love it as coaches. It's getting our stuff in and seeing it come to life. There's a little image at the top of that screen. I just took a screenshot of a general offensive install for most high schools or whatever programs, and it's usually daily install. Each day is a different thing, but we don't have that luxury of visiting it over and over again. I've pointed out, all the teams that I've been around have been practiced for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. We get an hour. How do we use it best? As I've already just pointed out as well. On average, we get about 12 weeks per pre-season in the UK. So the theory for me has always been, if we dedicate one play per week, that gives us a chance to install 12 plays if we have 12 plays. And then if we don't, we can incorporate review weeks and exotics, etc., etc. This is not actual my install format. I'll just quickly put it together, but it would look something. It would look something along these lines, which is laid out a little bit different. And you can see there, I'll just put 1, 2, 4, 5 because it's just the various weeks. But in our first week, we would just trim it down real simple. Like, so in our first week, we would install our first formation. We would install one play. In this case, it will be gun, it will be verts. And any additional for me is, what do we need to do to make it work? So in our very first week, we need to learn how to huddle, we need to learn how to break a huddle, and we need to learn how to get a signal. So obviously signals will be something that we put in before week 1 starts. We'll get to that later on. So in our first week, these are the things that we have to incorporate in our 1 hour's time. Now, the additional, the huddling and the signaling will come once we get into on-air period. So once we've got our play in, then we'll work on our huddle or our sugar huddle, or in the case last 2 years, no huddle. We'll work on no huddling and get our timing there and get our guys used to doing it. And obviously in week 2, we might keep the same formation. We might keep the same formation for 3 or 4 weeks. It depends on how much stuff you want to put in and how fast you want to put it in. So for me, a lot of our stuff gets put in 2 by 2 first. So the first 3 or 4 weeks might just be gun. It might be gun only, and that might be it. And it could be gun / switch if you're doing it both sides, like we do with our running backs. All kinds of stuff. It's your own personal preference on how you install your offense. You know what I mean? And again, the playing week 2 might be inside down, so you're installing a run play the first week, pass play the second week, etc., etc. Don't install 6 passes and 6 runs, because that's going to be unbalanced when you get into run scaling and pass scaling, because you can't do run scaling. So obviously, whatever the install guide that our head coach gives us and says, well, this week we might do run scale, we might do pass scale, that will have to incorporate into your own install schedule in which way around you install it. And then additional on week 2 is wide receiver screens. And then in week 3 we do something else again, and we'd probably have another gun formation. Probably switch that week, so we switched it around. So we got gun and switches out, running back to the sides. Another play might be stick, it might be sail, it might be white cross, it could be anything. But another play there, and an additional, it could be jet motion, anything like that. And then week 4 will be our first of probably 3 review weeks. And then when we get to review week, we don't add nothing else that week. We just want to go back and revisit those first 3 weeks and catch up and learn again. And something that I'll put there additional is that as coaches, we probably in our head start to formulate our very first depth chart. Even if it's not out there, we probably start to formulate it and get it in our heads and get our coaches to think about their depth charts and their positions, and then get together post practice, usually on some kind of group chat, and talk about where you think that very first additional depth chart, that very first depth chart is going to be at, and how many deep is it going to be. And then you can see back to week 5, we put another formation in, we put another play in, and in this case, then we're moving on to slow screens. So we install our plays weekly, 1 per week. You can do 2 per week if you're not a first year team and not a first year offense. If this is your second or third year, you might be able to do 2 plays per week. So you could do 1 run, 1 pass. If you have the body, so you can split it in half and do half and half and switch. It all depends on your club, your personnel, your numbers. Okay, but if you're short on numbers, and if you're, I'm trying to get this to guys who are learning the offensive coordinator position or becoming offensive coordinators. This is just something that you can look to and say, well, how are we doing this? And this is just an easy way that we can make the most of our very limited practice time that we have. We have to do things before then, like make these practice plans and make these install guides, so that when we get onto the field, we're in a far better position and everything runs far smoother. And that's the way that we have to do it. Okay, and my next point there is now it's stealing time. How can we steal time back in that 2-hour practice? Okay, so for me, one of the most important things that I've always done is that we make sure at weekly positional individual drills match this week's install. So if we're running hitches that 1 week, then our drills for our receivers have to include a hitch, how to run a hitch. It's that simple. If we incorporate our drills individuals into what we're running that week, it all fits together like a 5 bits of Lego. You know what I mean? In my example there, I've installed sticks, so our O line would install pass pro. Our running backs would install the swing route, and we'd run the swing route that week. And our wide receivers would only run the routes we need to run stick, whether it's 2 routes, 3 routes, or 4 routes. But whatever we run stick with, that's all we're teaching them. So if you just run double slants or 3 slants and a stick route, and that's just 2 routes. And that's all we're teaching. We keep it as simple as we can and as quickly as we can. And again, this is all brought into it bit by bit to get to the end product when we get to on-air time and team time. Okay? And something else that I want to touch on is that we spoke about before in a previous video, which is film as much as you can. You can film as much as you possibly can, not just when you get to pass scale and run scale. If you can film as much as you can, then you can go through reps a lot faster. If you have to stop the practice of your group for a proper teachable moment, then do so. Don't not coach. If somebody's stance is wrong or whatever, then stop. But if you're flying through reps and you know that their footwork was wrong, or if you're running back and their basket was the wrong way around, you know that you can go back on film, correct them, and then highlight it on film, and they can see what they've done wrong that way. So I get the rep. I would rather see my guys get the reps through. If I can get 10 reps in, and 6 of those reps may be sloppy, having those 6 reps is important. Having those 10 reps is important, sorry, because those reps will get them confidence to run the football. And once they start getting used to standing and running and going, they'll become more confident, and you can make up the rest of it down the line because they can just get into the groove of taking the hand off and moving into the line. Okay, so filming it from every position you possibly can is a vital importance in my honest opinion. Okay, cutting corners. Now this is how we make the most of Sunday practice when it's once a week. Okay, you aid your install with pre-practice meetings. Okay, so obviously your playbook's going to be put out there, or should be put out there, well in advance of pre-season. You know, like if you're starting in January, you need your playbook ready for January. So when you guys sign up, they can get their playbook and start learning it. Show them, or if you're in a group, show them or post your install plan. Okay, and then each week you'll put a post up on your social media, Facebook groups, or whatever tool you're using. Microsoft Teams, I don't know, whatever you're using. Put in your groups what we're installing this week, what everybody's job is, and then they can go ahead and know what we're going to run that week. Okay, and then once you do that, you might do it on a Sunday or on a Monday, and then come Wednesday, we'll have an offensive team meeting on Zoom or YouTube Live or Facebook, whatever your chosen pathway is. I don't know what everybody wants to do, but I personally use Zoom. I like Zoom. I'm not a fan of YouTube Live. I prefer to use Zoom. Honestly, it fits my way of working the best, and I like the interaction with the people instantly. But when we go on that Zoom, you can share your screen and you can show cut-ups of how it's been run before. You can post videos onto of the session later on, and the live online sessions you can just go through with the players that are on, talk them through it, and get it through. And then once that's done, you can upload it to your own personal YouTube channel, so that they can watch it at their leisure and get the play incorporated into what we're doing. So that when we get there on Sunday, they know what we're doing, what we're running, and how we want it run. And that makes things so much faster and so much quicker. We're not just teaching it on the fly. Like this is going to be 4 hishes because we're running the hish. We can talk about it on a Wednesday, post it up, post clips, post whatever you got of it on that you have of yourself running it, preferably. If not, of others running it, post it so they can see it and get it in their heads. A lot of people are visual learners, and I've always thought visual learning is one of the best ways for me. It's you can see it on the playbook, but if you can see it being ran, I think it just adds that dimension of learning. My final point, and this is strictly nothing to do with players, to do with coaches. This is always facilitate your defence coordinator. Exchange install plans pre-season, and you make whatever you're installing fit his install plan. Okay? It doesn't matter what we're doing, we make it fit him. And this is why, because we want to have a happy coaching staff where we're all on the same tune, we're all singing off the same hymn sheet. If something goes bad, you're in it together. Okay? We all fight that common cause. So if you've got trips there in week 5, I mean, if you got trips there in week 7, but he comes back and says, "Coach, I want to install our defensive trips this week," change your plan. Change it. Because if you say, "Well, okay, I'll do that for you this week," it builds the confidence, it builds the camaraderie. Because at some point, as I put there, at some point in time that season, that DC is probably going to save your ass. There's no two ways about it. At some point, you're going to stick the place up. It happens to everybody. At some point in the year, you're going to have a bad half or a bad game, and that DC is going to save your ass. You know what? And those are the times where those are the times where you'll know that you're together because you built that chemistry in the preseason, just like players do. Coaches can trust each other, and it makes a whole world of difference to your staff, your team, the whole energy of around the club. Okay, this is a nice, quick, simple video, guys. I'm just trying to give you examples and ideas of making the most of the time that we have. We only get to practice very little time compared to people in the States and probably those working in prime level European teams. We know full well that unless you're at the top tier, you're not going to see a whole bunch of midweek practices early, and you're not going to see a whole bunch of 3-4 times a week because that's not how it works, especially down the ranks and especially lower in lower levels. So it's only been a quick one, gents, but hopefully you can take something away. I appreciate all the support that you've given us on the channel so far. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you all again very, very soon. Take care.